Lieutenant Maya Jackson led elite SEAL teams through the world's deadliest combat zone. Now she faces her greatest battle in the place she once called home. When she returns to care for her sick mother in rural Georgia, Maya uncovers a dark web of corruption wearing police badges. Her military training screams that something is wrong when she spots officers roughly handling a terrified young woman outside a grocery store. One phone, one photo, and one moment of courage puts her directly in the crosshairs of a human trafficking operation that has infiltrated every level of local law enforcement. They think they can silence her. They think a decorated Navy SEAL will quietly accept false charges and a prison cell. They are dead wrong. Behind bars, Maya transforms from hunter to prey and back again. She will use every skill, every tactic, and every ounce of training to expose their operation and free their victim. But time is running out. Her mother's health is failing, and an unseen enemy within the prison walls threatens to expose her mission before she can gather enough evidence to bring down the entire corrupt system. Maya isn't just fighting for justice or her own freedom. She's fighting for the innocent lives caught in a criminal enterprise protected by the very people sworn to serve and protect. The first black female Navy SEAL is about to show these corrupt cops exactly who they're dealing with. Before we start this explosive story, buckle up, get ready, and subscribe for a special surprise tomorrow. The target sprinted across the rooftop, his footsteps crunching on loose gravel. Lieutenant Maya Jackson tracked his movement through her scope, watching him vault over an AC unit. Her finger rested steady on the trigger as she followed his desperate escape attempt. The rest of her team maintained their position, a net slowly closing around their high-value target. Romeo 1. I have eyes on target moving northeast, Maya whispered into her corn. Permission to engage with non-lethal? Negative, Lieutenant. Command wants him alive and unmarked. Maya adjusted her grip on the rifle, tracking the man as he approached the building's edge. Intel suggested he was carrying crucial information about a weapons smuggling operation. 5 months of careful planning had led to this moment. The target skidded to a stop at the roof's edge, 40 stories above Dubai's glittering street. He spun around, chest heat, clearly searching for an escape route. Maya could read the desperation in his body language. He was cornered, and they both knew it. Target is trapped, Romeo 1. Moving to secure. Maya slung her rifle and began a controlled approach, keeping low as she crossed the rooftop. The rest of her team would be arriving momentarily to cut off any potential escape route. Just another routine capture mission. Then her sat phone vibrated against her hip. Only 3 people had that number. Her mother was one of them. The target noticed her movement and backed up until his heels hung over empty air. Maya pushed the phone from her mind and focused on the mission. She raised her hands, showing them empty. It's over, she called out in Arabic. We only want to talk. He shook his head violently. You Americans never just want to talk. Maya took another careful step forward. You have my word. No harm will come to you, but that choice must be made in the next 30 seconds. She watched him process the options, saw the exact moment he decided to cooperate. His shoulders slumped, and he stepped away from the edge. Maya moved in smoothly to secure him just as her team burst through the roof access door. Target secured, she reported, efficiently zip-tying his wrists. Romeo 1, requesting immediate extract. Only when the target was safely in custody did Maya check her phone. One voicemail from Dr. Sarah Chen, her mother's oncologist. The message was brief but devastating. Lieutenant Jackson, your mother's condition has deteriorated significantly. I strongly recommend you return home as soon as possible. Maya felt her chest tighten. She'd known this call would come eventually, had tried to prepare herself for it, but now that it was here, she felt anything but ready. Lieutenant? Her second-in-command appeared at her shoulder. Extract team is 5 minutes out. Maya nodded, tucking the phone away. Good work today, everyone. Mission accomplished. But even as they waited for the helicopters, her mind was already racing ahead to what came next. She hadn't been back to Clayton County, Georgia in over 15 years. Not since the day she'd enlisted, leaving behind a hometown that had never quite felt like home. The debriefing passed in a blur. Maya filed her mission report with mechanical efficiency, her thoughts split between her mother's condition and the complex emotions that came with returning to Clayton County. Within hours, she was on a military transport heading stateside. The flight gave her too much time to think about her mother's fierce independence, how she'd refused to leave the small house where Maya grew up, even as the neighborhood declined, about the way the local police had shifted from community protectors to an occupying force, about all the reasons she'd stayed away so long. Maya checked her phone again during the layover in Germany. 3 missed calls from Dr. Chen. No voicemails this time. The knot in her stomach tightened. She landed at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport 18 hours after leaving Dubai. The August heat hit her like a wall as she stepped outside to catch a rideshare. Clayton County was only 30 minutes south, but it felt like traveling back in time. The driver, An elderly black man studied her in the rearview mirror. Military? That obvious? He chuckled. The haircut, plus the way you carry yourself. My son's Air Force. Maya nodded, but didn't elaborate. She watched the familiar landmarks slide past. The old mall where she'd had her first job, the park where she used to run training circuits before dawn, the corner store where Mrs. Jenkins still sold the best sweet potato pie in 3 counties. The neighborhood had changed. More boarded-up houses, fewer kids playing in front yards, more police cars prowling the streets with predatory intent. The driver pulled up in front of her mother's modest ranch house. The grass needed cutting, and the paint was peeling, but the flower beds were still immaculate. That was her mother all over, maintaining dignity and beauty despite deteriorating circumstance. Maya paid the driver and shouldered her duffel bag. Before she could reach the front door, it swung open. Her mother stood there, thinner than Maya remembered, but still straight-backed and proud. "You didn't have to come," Evelyn Jackson said. "Yes, I did." They studied each other for a long moment before Evelyn stepped back to let her in. The house smelled the same, lemon cleaner and fresh laundry. Maya's throat tightened as childhood memories washed over her. "Dr. Chen said the treatment isn't working anymore." Evelyn settled carefully into her favorite armchair. "Dr. Chen worries too much. I'm fine, Mama. I'm handling it," Evelyn said firmly. "Now tell me about Dubai. Did you catch your bad guy?" Maya recognized the deflection but allowed it. They had time to discuss harder topics later. She was settling in to tell a sanitized version of the mission when movement caught her eye through the front window. A police cruiser rolled past, moving slowly. The officer behind the wheel stared at the house with obvious interest. Maya felt her combat instincts stir. "They've been doing that more lately," Evelyn commented. "Ever since people started disappearing." Maya's attention snapped to her mother. "What disappearances?" "Young women mostly. The police say they're runaways, but everyone knows that's not true. Nobody does anything about it though. Not anymore." The cruiser passed by again, even slower this time. Maya watched it through narrowed eyes, her tactical mind already cataloging details. Something was very wrong in Clayton County, and Maya Jackson had never been good at ignoring wrong thing. She just didn't know yet how deep the wrongness went, or how much it would cost her to expose it. Maya spent the next 3 days observing her old neighborhood through new eyes. The police presence was overwhelming. Cruisers circling the blocks like sharks. Officers conducting random stops that seemed anything but random. She watched them target young women, especially those who looked vulnerable or unlikely to cause trouble. The corner store became her observation post. Mrs. Jenkins still ran the place, and she remembered Maya from childhood. Each morning, Maya would buy coffee and settle at the small table by the window, tracking patrol patterns and gathering intel. Her SEAL training had taught her the value of patience, of building a complete picture before taking action. On the 4th morning, she spotted something that made her instincts flare. A young woman, barely out of her teens, being pulled over by a patrol car. The officer's body language was wrong, too aggressive, too familiar. Maya started recording on her phone, keeping it low and partially hidden behind her coffee cup. The officer grabbed the woman's arm, spinning her around roughly. His partner blocked the view from passing traffic. Maya zoomed in, focusing on faces and badge numbers. The woman's expression landed on Maya's shoulder. She controlled her combat reflex, turning slowly to face another uniformed officer. "Lieutenant Jackson," he said, smiling without warmth. "Welcome home." Maya kept her expression neutral. "Do I know you?" "Officer Bradley Davy. We went to high school together." "Didn't you ship out to play soldier?" "Navy," she corrected mildly. "How'd you know I was back?" "Small town. Word gets around." His eyes flicked to her phone. "Taking pictures?" "Just checking messages." Davies leaned closer, dropping his voice. "Friendly advice? Clayton County's changed. Best keep your head down and mind your own business." Maya met his gaze steadily. "Always appreciated good advice." He straightened, adjusting his gun belt. "Give your mama my regards. Shame about her condition." The threat was clear in his tone. Maya watched him leave, memorizing his walk, his mannerisms, the way he carried his weapon. She'd learned to read men like him in war zones across the globe. The uniform might be different, but the predatory essence was the same. That night, she installed surveillance cameras around her mother's house, small military-grade units that transmitted to a secure cloud server. She placed motion sensors at key entry points and added electronic locks to the doors. Her mother watched the process with resigned understanding. "You're not just here for me, are you?" "I'm here because you need me," Maya answered, testing a window sensor. "Everything else is secondary." Evelyn sighed. "Baby, these people, they're dangerous. So am I." The next week brought more disturbing pattern. Maya documented everything. Suspicious traffic stops, women being pulled over and never reaching their destination, patrol cars visiting certain buildings at regular intervals. She built a detailed map of activity, cross-referencing it with local missing persons reports she found online. The numbers were staggering. 23 women had vanished from Clayton County in the past year alone. The police classified them all as runaways. No serious investigations were conducted. No Amber Alerts issued. No media coverage beyond small mentions in the local paper. Maya expanded her surveillance, placing cameras near locations where the disappearances clustered. She needed hard evidence before she could take action. But she wasn't the only one watching. Police drive-bys past her mother's house increased. Random traffic stops when she went anywhere. Small things started going wrong. Her mother's prescriptions delayed. Utilities experiencing mysterious interruptions. Minor but constant harassment. Then Dr. Chen called. Maya's mother had missed 2 appointments. When Maya checked, the hospital had no record of scheduling them. The message was clear: back off or things would get worse. She was conducting maintenance on the surveillance cameras when Mrs. Jenkins called from the store. "Maya, baby, you need to come down here. There's something you should see." The store's security cameras had captured clear footage of 2 officers forcing a young woman into an unmarked car. Mrs. Jenkins had already copied the video to a flash drive. She pressed it into Maya's hand with trembling fingers. "I've seen things," the older woman whispered. "Terrible thing, but nobody does anything. Nobody can." Maya squeezed her hand. "I can. I will." She was halfway home when she noticed the patrol car following her. 2 more joined from side streets, boxing her in. Maya checked her exits, analyzing angles and speeds. She could lose them if necessary, but that would only accelerate the confrontation. They forced her to pull over in an empty parking lot. 4 officers approached her car, hands on weapon. Maya recognized Davies among them. She kept her hands visible on the steering wheel, outwardly calm, while her mind calculated distances and reaction time. "Step out of the vehicle, Lieutenant." Maya complied slowly, precisely. They ordered her to face the car, hands behind her back. She felt them searching her roughly, heard them ransacking her vehicle. The flash drive was in her boot, pressed against her ankle. Well, Davy said, holding up a small bag of white powder. "Looks like someone's got a drug problem." "That's not mine." "They all say that." He grabbed her arm, cuffing her with unnecessary force. "You're under arrest for possession with intent to distribute. Should have listened when I told you to mind your business." Maya allowed them to put her in the back of a patrol car. She'd known this might happen, had prepared for it. Everything was documented, encrypted, and uploaded to secure servers. If anything happened to her, the evidence would automatically release to multiple federal agencies. But she hadn't expected them to move this quickly, hadn't finished gathering enough evidence to bring down the entire operation. Now, she'd have to do it from the inside. The patrol car rolled through darkening streets, but they weren't heading toward the county jail. Maya watched familiar landmarks pass, mentally mapping their route. They were heading somewhere more isolated, somewhere off the books. She flexed her wrists, testing the cuffs. Sloppy work. She could slip them if needed, but not yet. Sometimes the best way to fight wasn't to fight at all. Sometimes you had to let the enemy think they'd won. Davies glanced back at her from the passenger seat, smirking. "Should have stayed in Dubai, Lieutenant. Some things here in Clayton County, they're bigger than you. Bigger than any of us." Maya met his eyes in the rearview mirror. "Nothing's bigger than justice." He laughed. "Justice? In this town, we are justice." The car turned down a narrow road leading into thick wood. Maya memorized every turn, every landmark. She could feel the weight of the flash drive against her ankle. Sometimes the best place to hide something was in plain sight. They were taking her somewhere to make her disappear, but they didn't understand what they were dealing with. She wasn't some helpless victim. She was a Navy SEAL, trained to survive and operate in enemy territory. These corrupt cops thought they were the predators. Maya would show them what a real predator could do. But first, she had to let them cage her, had to get inside their operation. The car stopped at a remote building that might once have been a storage facility. No cameras visible, no witnesses. Perfect for making people disappear. Maya let them drag her inside, memorizing faces and voices. She didn't resist. Not yet. The time for that would come. First, she needed to understand exactly what she was dealing with. "Welcome to your new home, Lieutenant," Davies said, shoving her into a cell. "Hope you enjoy your stay." Maya stood in the darkness, listening to their footsteps recede. She could escape within minutes if she wanted to, but that wouldn't stop their operation, wouldn't save the other women trapped in their web. No, she needed to play this smart, needed to become their worst nightmare from the inside out. These corrupt cops had no idea what they'd just locked in with them. Maya settled onto the thin mattress, closed her eyes, and began to plan. The real mission was just beginning. The holding facility hummed with fluorescent lights and the steady drone of industrial AC units. Maya sat motionless on her cell's metal bench, eyes closed, breathing steady. To the guards watching through the observation window, she appeared defeated. In reality, she was mapping every sound, every vibration, building a mental blueprint of the facility's rhythm. 24 hours had passed since her arrest. No phone call, no lawyer, no official booking. Everything about this place screamed black sight. The few guards she'd seen wore tactical gear instead of standard uniform, faces obscured by balaclavas. Professional, military trained. This was no ordinary county lockup. Maya heard footsteps approaching. 3 sets. The cell door opened, and Officer Davies entered with 2 masked guards. "Time for processing, Lieutenant." They zip-tied her hand and led her down a sterile hallway to a small room containing only a metal table and chair. A video camera blinked in the corner. Davies sat across from her while the guards took positions by the door. "Let's make this simple," Davies said, placing a document in front of her. "Sign the confession. Admit to the drug charge. Take a plea deal. 5 years max. Out in 3 with good behavior." Maya studied the paper without touching it. "And if I refuse? Then things get complicated. Maybe more drugs turn up in your mother's house. Maybe her medical care experiences unfortunate delays. Maybe she has an accident. Lots of things can happen to elderly folks living alone." Maya kept her expression neutral, but inside her tactical mind was cataloging every detail. Davies' confidence, the guard's positioning, the camera angle, all valuable intel. "You're too smart for this game, Davies. Drug charges won't stick. You need something bigger to make me disappear." He smiled thinly. "You sound pretty confident for someone facing 20 years. Because we both know this isn't about drugs. This facility isn't even official, is it? No paperwork. No oversight. Perfect place to process other kinds of merchandise." Davies' smile vanished. "Careful, Lieutenant. You're in dangerous waters. Human trafficking. That's what this is about. All those missing women, this is where they disappear to." The silence stretched. Maya watched Davies' fingers tap the table, a tell she'd noted earlier. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. A man fighting to control his last chance to do this the easy way. Maya met his gaze steadily. "I've spent 15 years fighting monsters in foreign countries. Never thought I'd find worse ones wearing badges in my hometown." Davies nodded to the guards. "Take her to special processing. Maybe a few days there will adjust her attitude." They grabbed her arms, but Maya was already moving. 15 years of close quarters combat training kicked in. She drove her shoulder into the first guard's sternum while sweeping the second guard's legs. Both went down hard. Davies reached for his weapon, but Maya was faster. She slammed his head against the table, not hard enough to knock him out, just enough to stun him. She wanted him conscious for what came next. "Listen carefully," she whispered in his ear. "I let you take me because I needed to confirm what was happening here. Now I know. Whatever you're planning, remember this moment. Remember that I could have ended you, but I chose not to." The door burst open as more guards rushed in. Maya didn't resist as they subdued her. She'd made her point. Now they'd have to take her seriously. They dragged her to a windowless cell deep in the facility's bowels. The walls were bare concrete, the floor stained with substances she chose not to identify. No bed, no toilet, just a drain in the center of the floor. "Enjoy special processing," Davies called through the door. "Most folks only last a few days before they break. Let's see how tough SEALs really are." Maya sat cross-legged in the center of the cell, ignoring the cold seeping through her clothes. She'd endured worse in SEER training, much worse. This was just another mission behind enemy line. Hours blurred together. They kept the lights on constantly, played discordant noise through hidden speakers, randomly doused her with ice water. Standard sleep deprivation tactics. Amateur hour compared to what she'd trained for. Between harassment sessions, Maya exercised. Push-ups, squats, isometric holds, keeping her body strong, her mind focused. The guards watched through the observation window, growing increasingly unsettled by her calm discipline. On the 3rd day, they brought in a woman named Rachel Chen. No relation to Dr. Chen, just another victim of Clayton County's corrupt system. They put her in the cell next to Maya. "Lieutenant," Rachel whispered through the wall, "Mrs. Jenkins told some of us about you. Said you were going to help." "I am. Tell me everything you know." Rachel's story confirmed Maya's suspicions. The trafficking operation went beyond Davies and his crew. Local judges were involved, business owners, even state officials. Women would be arrested on false charges, processed through this facility, then disappear into a wider network. "They're moving another group tonight," Rachel said. "I overheard the guards talking. Some buyer from overseas." Maya closed her eyes, thinking. The flash drive was still secure in her boot, undetected during their searches. But she needed more. Needed to document everything happening in this facility before she could act. Davies came to her cell that evening, looking satisfied. "Ready to sign that confession?" "Almost. Just need you to explain one thing. How much does a dirty cop make from selling women?" His face darkened. "Last chance, Lieutenant. Sign, or things get really unpleasant." "That's what I thought. You're not even high enough in the organization to know the real numbers. Just another disposable asset." The beating that followed was calculated, designed to hurt without leaving permanent damage. Maya absorbed the blows, protecting vital areas, letting them think they were breaking her. In reality, she was gathering more intelligence. How many guards? Their fighting style, response times between shifts. They left her lying on the cold concrete. As soon as the door closed, Maya began her own calculations. Based on Rachel's intel, she had less than 12 hours before the next transport. Time to move from reconnaissance to action. She retrieved the flash drive from her boot and removed the false casing, revealing the military-grade tracking device hidden inside. One click would activate it, sending her location to multiple agencies. But timing was crucial. She needed to wait until the transport arrived, document the whole operation. Through the wall, Rachel whispered, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, but I need your help. When they come for the transport, I need you to make as much noise as possible. Can you do that?" "Yes." "What are you going to do?" Maya smiled in the darkness. "I'm going to show them why Navy SEALs are the most dangerous predators on Earth." The next hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. Maya used the time to prepare, stretching muscle, reviewing tactical scenario. When they came for her, she would be ready. She heard the transport arrival just before midnight. Multiple vehicles, heavy footsteps in the corridor, male voices discussing merchandise and prices. Rachel began screaming, throwing herself against her cell door, creating the perfect distraction. Maya positioned herself by her own door, every sense alert, waiting for the perfect moment. These corrupt cops thought they'd imprisoned a SEAL. They were about to learn their mistake. They hadn't caged a victim. They'd locked themselves in with a hunter, and the hunt was about to begin. Maya meticulously tracked the facility's rhythms over the next 3 days. Guard rotations every 8 hours. Supply deliveries at 0600 and 1800. Prisoner transfers under cover of darkness. Everything ran with military precision, suggesting whoever ran this operation had a background in tactical operation. Her cell measured 8 by 10 feet, concrete on 3 sides, with a reinforced door featuring a small observation window. The ventilation system kicked on every 30 minutes, providing brief moments of white noise cover. Security cameras had 2-degree blind spots at the corners, all valuable intel for what was coming. Other prisoners filled the nearby cells. Maya listened to their conversations, building a picture of the operation's scope. Most were young women arrested on fabricated charges. Some had been here for weeks, others just days. All were destined for transport to unnamed buyers. A guard named Martinez worked the night shift. He was younger than the others, less hardened. Maya noticed how he flinched during the rougher processing session. A potential weak link. "Hey Martinez," she called softly one night. "How long you been doing this?" He paused by her cell. Not supposed to talk to prisoner. Must be hard, watching what they do to these women, living with that knowledge, just following order. Maya leaned against the wall. That's what they all say. Until the federal investigation starts and everyone scrambles to make deals. She saw the doubt flash across his face before he hurried away. The seed was planted. During exercise periods, Maya studied the other guards, their weapons, their tactics, their blind spots. Most were ex-military, but sloppy, too reliant on their authority, too confident in their control. She categorized each one: weak point, pressure triggers, exploitable habit. Rachel provided regular intelligence from the adjacent cell: names, dates, destination. Maya memorized everything, building a comprehensive map of the trafficking network. The operation spread far beyond Clayton County, reaching into multiple states. Davies visited daily, alternating between threats and offers. Maya's mother's health continued to decline, he mentioned casually. Shame if she couldn't get proper care, but a signed confession would solve everything. Maya gave him nothing. Each visit was another opportunity to gather intel: the way he carried himself, the rhythm of his speech, his unconscious tells. She was learning to read him like a tactical manual. More women arrived. Maya heard their processing session, memorized their stories. Some disappeared within days, others lingered, presumably awaiting specific buyers. The guards discussed them like inventory, using codes and numbers instead of name. Martinez's night shifts became opportunities for careful conversation. Maya shared sanitized stories from her military service, building rapport. She noticed how he lingered longer each time, his resolve cracking beneath the weight of his conscience. "These women have families," she said one night. "People searching for them. People who'll never stop looking." He shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't sign up for this." There's still time to make it right. The facility's power structure became clear. Davies answered to someone he called the Colonel, a figure who never appeared in person. Weekly shipments went out through a loading dock on the north side. Maya tracked the vehicle movements by their engine sound, building a schedule. She started testing the guards' responses, small acts of defiance, carefully calibrated. How long before they reacted? Which ones used excessive force? Who maintained discipline under pressure? Each interaction provided valuable data. Rachel's cell went empty one night. No warning, no transport protocol, just silence where her whispered intelligence had been. Maya added it to her mental catalog of the facility's pattern. Maya's reputation spread through the facility's whispered network. The SEAL who fought back, the one who didn't break. Hope was a dangerous weapon in a place like this, and Maya knew how to wield it. Davies noticed the shift in atmosphere. The guards grew tenser, more aggressive. Maya's presence was disrupting their carefully controlled system. Good. Unstable systems made mistakes. She kept her body conditioned, her mind sharp. Every moment was an opportunity to gather intelligence or strengthen her position. The guards thought they were watching her. In reality, she was studying them, learning their facility, preparing for the moment to strike. That moment came closer when Martinez whispered through her cell door one night, "Lieutenant, something big's happened. Full transport next week. They're clearing the facility." Maya didn't react visibly. How many women? All of them. Some buyer from overseas made a bulk offer. Finally, the operation she'd been waiting for. Large enough to attract attention, complex enough to strain their security protocols. The perfect moment to strike. The facility's atmosphere changed over the next days. More guards, more activity. Maya logged every detail, updating her mental tactical map. They thought they were preparing for a major transport operation. They didn't realize they were preparing for their own downfall. Maya had spent 2 weeks becoming part of their system, learning its weaknesses, positioning herself for this moment. The trackers were in place, the intelligence gathered. She'd mapped every camera, every exit, every security response pattern. Most importantly, she'd connected with every prisoner, building a network ready to act when the moment came. Martinez provided the final piece during his last night shift. Full tactical team arriving tomorrow. Some special forces types to handle the transport. Maya smiled in the darkness. Special forces. Finally, someone worth fighting. They thought they were securing a routine prisoner transport. They had no idea they were walking into a trap set by one of the world's most highly trained combat operators. The game was about to change. These corrupt cops had spent 2 weeks thinking they'd imprisoned a Navy SEAL. Tomorrow they'd learn what that really meant. Maya settled onto her cell floor, closed her eye, and began her final mental preparations. Years of training, combat experience, and tactical planning had led to this moment. Tomorrow, she would remind them why Navy SEALs were the apex predators in any environment. The hunt was about to begin. The tactical team arrived at dawn, their heavy boots echoing through the facility's corridors. Maya tracked their movements by sound, counting footsteps and equipment rattle. 12 operators minimum, moving with military precision. These weren't regular guards. Their tactical discipline marked them as professional. Martinez made his final round, pale and nervous. Transport starts at 0900. The colonel's coming to oversee everything personal. Maya acknowledged the intel with a slight nod. The colonel's presence changed the operational parameters, but not her fundamental strategy. If anything, it improved her chances of documenting the entire command structure. The facility transformed into a hive of focused activity. Maya heard the other prisoners being processed for transport, their cell doors opening and closing in steady rhythm. She maintained her position, appearing calm and defeated while her mind ran combat calculations. Davies stopped at her cell, looking crisp in tactical gear. "Big day, Lieutenant. Sure you don't want to reconsider that confession? Still playing that game, Davies? We both know I'm not leaving this facility through official channels." His smile was cold. "Smart woman. The colonel's very interested in meeting you. Says you might be worth more alive than dead." Maya registered the shift in their plans. They weren't just eliminating a threat anymore. They saw potential value in a highly trained military operator. Amateur mistake. Never keep what you can't completely control. The tactical team leader inspected her cell. Maya noted his stance, his equipment, the way he carried his weapons. Former special forces, probably Delta or Rangers. This would be interesting. "Secure for transport," he ordered. 4 operators entered her cell. Maya remained seated, relaxed, unthreatening. Let them think they had control. The first operator approached with restraint. Maya struck like a cobra. The first operator went down with a crushed larynx. The second lost consciousness from a precise carotid strike. Maya acquired their weapons before the third could react, using his body as a shield against the fourth's taser deployment. Alarm sirens blared. Maya engaged the remaining operators with ruthless efficiency. Her SEAL training amplified by 2 weeks of tactical preparation. Every move was calculated, each target precisely selected. She reached the corridor as reinforcements arrived. The tactical team's radio discipline gave her their positions and numbers. Maya used their own protocols against them, triggering predictable response patterns she could exploit. Gunfire erupted from multiple positions. Maya moved through it like water, using angles and cover she'd memorized during her imprisonment. The facility's architecture funneled them into kill zones she'd already mapped. Martinez appeared at a security checkpoint, hands raised. "Lieutenant, this way." Maya assessed his position, checking for signs of deception. His body language read genuine panic. She followed him through maintenance corridors, eliminating resistance with precise application of force. They reached the security control room. Martinez's access card worked. Inside, Maya found exactly what she needed. Computer terminals logged into the facility's systems. "Upload these files," she ordered, handing Martinez the flash drive. "Everything goes to these preset addresses." While he worked, Maya established a defensive position. The tactical team's response patterns suggested they were falling back to protect key areas. "Good. Let them cluster their forces." "Files uploading," Martinez reported, "but they're locking down the facility. All exits sealed." Maya accessed the security feeds. Davies was coordinating with a silver-haired man in expensive tactical gear, the colonel. They were moving the prisoners toward the loading dock. "How long for the upload?" 3 minutes. Maya checked her acquired weapons and ammunition. "Hold this position. When the upload finishes, trigger the fire suppression system." She moved through the facility like a ghost, using maintenance shafts and ventilation ducts she'd mapped during her imprisonment. The tactical team's radio chatter told her they were sealing escape routes, preparing for room-to-room sweeps. They didn't understand. She wasn't trying to escape, she was hunting. Maya reached the loading dock as they were loading prisoners into unmarked van. The colonel supervised personally, his bearing confirming her military assessment. Former Special Forces commander, used to authority and absolute control, she positioned herself in a sniper's perch she'd identified weeks ago. Perfect angle on the entire loading area. Through her scope, she could see Davies arguing with the colonel, tension in their body language. The operation was unraveling. The facility's fire suppression system activated right on schedule. Chaos erupted as alarms blared and sprinklers drenched everything. Maya used the confusion to eliminate key tactical positions she'd identified. The colonel recognized the pattern in her attacks. "Pull back! She's fragmenting our response teams." Too late. Maya had already compromised their command and control structure. The tactical team's discipline wavered as their carefully planned operation dissolved into chaos. She engaged the colonel's security detail with precise shots, herding them into prepared kill zone. Each engagement was calculated to appear random while following her carefully orchestrated plan. The colonel grabbed a radio. "Burn everything! Wipe the systems!" Maya smiled. The files were already uploaded, documented evidence spreading across secure servers. Now she just had to contain the leadership until proper authorities arrived. An explosion rocked the facility. The tactical team was destroying evidence, probably on a preset contingency plan. Maya used the destruction to mask her movement toward the colonel's position. She found him in the command center, deleting files while Davies provided security. Both men spun as she entered, weapons raised. "Lieutenant," the colonel said calmly, "impressive tactical display. We could use someone with your skills. Should have thought of that before trafficking innocent women. Business is business. Everyone has a price." Maya engaged them with controlled aggression. Davies fell first, his police training inadequate against her SEAL combat experience. The colonel proved more challenging, his special forces background evident in every move. They fought through the smoke-filled command center, two apex predators recognizing each other's lethal capabilities. But Maya had spent 2 weeks preparing for exactly this moment. She knew every angle, every surface, every possible tactical advantage. The colonel's age showed as the fight prolonged. His technique remained excellent, but his stamina flagged. Maya pressed her advantage methodically, forcing him to expend energy attacks. Maya countered, disarming him with a technique perfected in countless combat operations. The colonel fell, his own tactical knife pressed against his throat. "You've lost," Maya said. "The evidence is already out. Federal agencies are moving in. Your operation is finished." The colonel laughed despite the blade at his neck. "You think this ends with me? The organization is bigger than you can imagine. I'm counting on it. You're going to help me tear it all down." Sirens approached the facility. The colonel's smile faded as he recognized the federal tactical team's signature sound. Maya secured him professionally, taking no chances with such a dangerous operator. She did a final sweep of the command center, documenting everything before the evidence teams arrived. The colonel watched her with cold calculation. "They'll never let you testify," he said. "Too many powerful people involved." Maya met his gaze. "That's why I already sent copies of everything to every major news organization and federal agency. The files go public in 24 hours, unless very specific conditions are met." She saw the respect kindle in his eye, one professional recognizing another's thorough tactical planning. The federal tactical teams breached the facility's main entrance. Maya maintained her position, weapon ready. She'd accomplished her mission, but experience had taught her the most dangerous moment was often right after victory. Her SEAL instincts had served her well, but the war wasn't over. This was just the first battle in a longer campaign. These traffickers would learn what every enemy she'd ever faced discovered. Never underestimate a Navy SEAL with a mission. The federal tactical team swept through the facility with professional efficiency. Maya watched them work, noting their formations and protocol. They were good, but they weren't seals. She spotted 3 surveillance blind spots they missed. FBI Special Agent Sarah Chen led the operation. No relation to Maya's mother's doctor, just another coincidence in a small world. She debriefed Maya in a makeshift command center while evidence teams documented everything. "The colonel isn't talking," Chen said. "Davies either. They're confident someone will intervene." Maya nodded. "They're right. Check the local judge's financial records, the ones who signed off on all those questionable arrests." The investigation expanded rapidly. Maya's uploaded files provided a roadmap of corruption reaching into state government, but something felt wrong. The colonel's confidence suggested a deeper game. She reviewed facility security footage, looking for patterns the FBI might have missed. The colonel had been too prepared for her assault, almost like he'd expected it. Martinez appeared in the command center doorway. "Lieutenant, there's something you should see." He led her to the facility's server room. Computer techs were recovering deleted files, reconstructing the trafficking operations architecture. One screen showed familiar faces, Navy faces. Some of the buyers were military, Martinez said quietly. High-ranking. Maya felt cold anger settle in her chest. The colonel's organization had infiltrated the armed forces, her service, her family. The revelation changed everything. This wasn't just about corrupt cops anymore. The organization's tentacles reached into the heart of military procurement and logistics. Perfect cover for moving human cargo internationally. A junior agent rushed in. "Lieutenant Jackson, your mother's doctor called. Her condition's deteriorating rapidly." Maya studied the agent's face, body language, tone. Something was off. She keyed her radio. "Agent Chen, confirm last transmission." Static answered. The facility's communications were being jammed. Maya moved instantly, shoving Martinez clear as bullets shredded the doorway. A new tactical team had entered the facility. Their gear marked them as private military contractors, high-end professionals. Maya recognized their formation patterns. These were the organization's real operators. She engaged them in the server room's confined space, using computer banks as cover. Their tactics confirmed her analysis. These men had serious combat experience, and none of the local cops' sloppy habits. Martinez provided surprisingly competent covering fire, while Maya maneuvered through the shadows. His police training wasn't special forces level, but he kept his head under pressure. "FBI teams are pinned down in the north sector," he reported. "These guys knew exactly where to hit us." Maya accessed the facility's internal cameras through a backup terminal. The mercenaries had isolated federal forces in defensive positions, cutting off external communications. Professional work. She spotted their commander coordinating the assault. His movement patterns looked familiar. Then she remembered a classified operation in Yemen 3 years ago. This man had been on the opposing side. "How many confirmed hostiles?" she asked Martinez. "At least 15, maybe more outside." Maya checked her acquired weapons and ammunition. Not enough for a straight fight, but she hadn't survived 15 years of special operations by fighting fair. The mercs were good, but they'd made one critical mistake. They thought they were assaulting a compromised black site. They didn't realize they'd walked into a Navy SEAL's kill house. Maya had spent 2 weeks learning every angle of this facility, every shadow, every sound channel, every structural weakness. Time to use that knowledge. She directed Martinez to trigger specific system failures she'd secretly prepared. Electrical shorts, pressure drops, targeted malfunctions. The facility's infrastructure became a weapon in her hand. The mercenary team split up to clear sectors methodically. Maya picked them apart using their own tactical doctrine against them. Years of studying enemy special forces paid off as she predicted and countered their movements. Their commander adapted quickly, changing protocols to avoid her ambush zones. Smart, but Maya had planned for that too. Each defensive position she abandoned contained subtle traps and false intel. Martinez proved increasingly valuable, using his police knowledge of the facility to anticipate patrol patterns. Together they systematically isolated and eliminated hostile elements. The mercenary commander's voice crackled over a captured radio. "Target is a Tier 1 operator. Switch to contingency Theta." Maya recognized the code from intelligence briefing. They were preparing to demolish the facility, destroying evidence even at the cost of their own men. She found Agent Chen and her FBI team establishing a fallback position. "Buildings rigged to blow. We need to evacuate now." "Can't," Chen replied. "They've got kill teams watching the exits." Maya accessed the facility's original blueprints in her mind. The colonel's renovation work had added new structures, but hadn't changed the basic foundation. "There's a maintenance tunnel under the north loading dock," she said. "Used for drainage. Big enough to move everyone." Chen organized the evacuation, while Maya prepared a diversion. The mercenaries were professionals. They'd expect an escape attempt and watch for it. The facility's fire suppression system provided cover. Maya used it to mask the sound of FBI teams moving through maintenance areas. Meanwhile, she engaged the mercenary forces directly, drawing attention. Their commander recognized the tactic. She's running interference. Find that escape route. Maya led them on a calculated chase through the facility's upper levels. Each engagement looked like a fighting retreat, but actually delayed their search pattern. Martinez coordinated the FBI evacuation through his police channels. Maya heard the confirmation as the last agents reached safety. Time to implement her final contingent. She'd secretly rigged the facility's backup generators during her imprisonment. Now she triggered them to overload, starting a cascade of electrical fire. The mercenary commander ordered an immediate withdrawal. His men were too professional to risk being trapped in a burning building. Maya used their retreat to access the colonel's secure files one last time. The data confirmed her suspicion. This wasn't just a local trafficking operation. It was part of a global network using military logistics chains. The colonel had been right. The organization was bigger than she'd imagined. Maya evacuated through her prepared route as explosions began consuming the facility. The mercenaries' demolition charges mixed with her generator overload, erasing physical evidence but not her documented files. She found Agent Chen establishing a perimeter with local authority. The mercenaries had vanished, leaving behind a burning building and more questions than answers. "They'll try to bury this," Chen said. "Too many powerful people involved." Maya watched the facility burn. "Let them try. Now we know who they are. And they've never faced an enemy like me." The organization had revealed itself, its resources, its tactics, its military connections. Maya had lost this battle, but gained vital intelligence. Next time she'd be better prepared, because there would be a next time. The colonel's people had made a fatal error. They'd made this personal. They were about to learn why Navy SEALs were the world's most lethal hunter. The real war smelled of antiseptic and fear. Maya found her mother's room at the end of the ICU wing, heart monitors beeping in steady rhythm. Evelyn Jackson looked small in the medical bed, tubes and wires monitoring her failing system. Dr. Chen stood at the bedside reviewing charts. The real Dr. Chen, not the FBI agent sharing her name. She met Maya's eyes with professional concern. "The cancer's spreading aggressively. We need to start a new treatment protocol immediately." Maya studied her mother's sleeping face. "What are our options?" "There's an experimental trial at Johns Hopkins, cutting-edge immunotherapy, but insurance won't cover it." The unspoken message was clear. The treatment that might save her mother's life was available only to those who could afford it, just like justice in Clayton County. Maya checked her secure phone. The files she'd recovered from the facility were spreading through federal agencies and news organizations. The organization's damage control teams would be working overtime. She had leverage now. Information they desperately wanted contained, maybe enough leverage to save her mother's life. Her tactical phone vibrated. Unknown number, but the pattern matched covert military protocols. Maya stepped into the hallway to answer. "Lieutenant Jackson, impressive work at the facility." She recognized the voice from mission briefings years ago. Admiral James Morrison, Naval Special Warfare Command, not someone who made casual calls to junior officers. "Thank you, sir. Those files you acquired, they implicate some very important people. People vital to national security." Maya watched hospital staff move through their routine. "With respect, sir, human trafficking is a threat to national security. There are bigger threats, Lieutenant. Threats you don't have clearance to understand. The organization you've stumbled into serves necessary functions. Selling women into slavery is necessary?" Morrison's voice hardened. "Sometimes maintaining global stability requires moral compromise. You know this from your operations experience." "Not like this, sir. Never like." "Be reasonable, Lieutenant. You have an impressive career ahead of you. The right people are willing to overlook this incident. Your mother could receive the best possible care at Walter Reed. All you have to do is secure those files." Maya felt cold anger settle in her chest. This wasn't just corruption. This was rot at the heart of the system she'd sworn to defend. "Sir, you should know that if anything happens to me or my mother, those files go public automatically. Every major news organization and federal agency will receive copy." Silence stretched across the secure line. Maya could almost hear Morrison's tactical calculations. "You're playing a dangerous game, Lieutenant." "No, sir. I'm completing my mission, protecting American citizens from enemies, foreign and domestic." She ended the call and erased the number. The organization was revealing more of itself, using military channels, offering medical care as leverage. Each contact provided new intelligence. Maya returned to her mother's room. Evelyn's eyes were open, watching her with knowing concern. "You've got that look," Evelyn said. "The one you had before you enlisted, when you're about to do something dangerous for the right reasons. How's the pain?" "Don't change the subject. These people you're fighting, they're powerful." Maya checked the room for surveillance devices. Hospital security was compromised. She'd seen familiar faces in the corridors. "They're also scared. That's why they're making offers instead of threats now. Evelyn reached for her hand. Baby, I'm not worth you throwing your life away. This isn't just about you anymore, Mama. They're using the military to traffic women, using our bases, our transport systems. Everything I fought to protect, they're corrupting it. Her mother's grip tightened. Then you make them pay. But you be smart about it. These people, they don't fight fair. Maya thought of the mercenary team at the facility, the Admiral's thinly veiled threats, the organization's reach into military command structures. Fighting fair is for the ring, she said. In the field, you use every advantage. She spent the night in her mother's room, reviewing tactical options. The organization had revealed multiple pressure points. Each contact provided new intelligence she could exploit. Her secure phone vibrated again near dawn. Agent Chen's number. We're being shut down, Chen reported. Orders from Washington. The investigation's being transferred to military jurisdiction. Maya had expected this. They'll bury it in classified archives. How much time do we have? 24 hours before the handover. My team's already being reassigned. Another piece of the puzzle. The organization was using military classification to hide its operations. Perfect cover for moving people and money internationally. Maya watched the sun rise through hospital window. Time was running out. Her mother needed that experimental treatment. The trafficking victims needed justice, and the organization needed to be exposed. She couldn't fight this enemy directly, not with their resources and political cover. But SEALs specialized in asymmetric warfare, fighting smarter, not harder. The organization had one critical weakness. They needed silence and shadows to operate. Maya had spent her career learning to weaponize the truth. She checked her mother's monitors one last time. Evelyn slept peacefully, unaware of the war being waged around her hospital bed. Maya made her decision. The next 24 hours would determine everything. Time to take the fight to the enemy's center of gravity. They thought they could buy her silence with medical treatment. They were about to learn an expensive lesson about a SEAL's loyalty. The hunt was entering its final phase. Maya established her command center in an abandoned warehouse near the hospital. Martinez had secured the location through his police contacts, ensuring no official records of their presence existed. Her mother's treatment window was closing. The organization was moving to contain the situation. Maya had 24 hours to turn their strengths into weaknesses. She mapped the intelligence gathered so far on a makeshift tactical board. The colonel's files had revealed key shipping routes and front companies. Admiral Morrison's call confirmed high-level military involvement. Each piece connected to form a larger pattern. Martinez arrived with Rachel Chen and other survivors from the facility. They'd been in protective custody, but the FBI's shutdown order left them vulnerable. They're trying to discredit us, Rachel reported. Police are calling us unreliable witnesses. Media won't touch our stories. Maya studied the tactical board. They control official channels, so we bypass them. She activated a secure communications array, borrowed from her SEAL team's unofficial equipment cache. The organization used military systems for cover. Time to use those same systems against them. Martinez coordinated with sympathetic officers in multiple jurisdictions. Rachel's survivor network provided dates and locations of trafficking operations. Maya cross-referenced everything against naval shipping schedules. A pattern emerged. The organization used military transport flights for trafficking. Falsified cargo manifests concealed human cargo moving through bases worldwide. Maya accessed classified channels using old mission code. The organization's military connections worked both ways. Every system they used to hide their operations could be used to track them. The secure phone vibrated. Agent Chen. Military police are mobilizing, she warned. Someone authorized a national security warrant for your arrest. Maya checked hospital surveillance feeds on her laptop. Plainclothes operators moving into position. Professional teams at every exit. They're making their move, Maya told her team. Time for countermeasure. She activated preset protocols in the files stolen from the facility. Evidence began uploading to international servers beyond U.S. jurisdiction. The organization's entire infrastructure exposed. Martinez monitored police channel. Multiple tactical teams converging on the hospital. They're using federal counterterrorism authorities. Maya smiled coldly. The organization was revealing more of its capability. Each response provided new intelligence. She established secure communications with her mother's room. Evelyn Jackson was awake and alert, watching operators position themselves in the hallway. Ready, Mama? Born ready, baby. Give them hell. Maya triggered hospital security systems she'd compromised. Fire alarms activated in targeted sectors. Emergency protocols forced evacuation, disrupting the tactical team's carefully planned containment. Martinez coordinated with his police contacts. Civilian response units converged on the hospital, complicating the military operation. Maya used the chaos to execute her real plan. Rachel's survivor network launched simultaneous media campaigns across multiple platforms. Stories of trafficking and military corruption flooded social channels fast faster than they could be contained. Maya watched the organization's response through compromised communications. Their damage control protocols activated automatically, trying to suppress each attempted suppression triggered new releases from different servers. The truth spread like a virus through their systems. The tactical teams breached her mother's hospital room, only to find it empty. Maya had moved her hours earlier, using old SEAL infiltration routes to bypass security. Admiral Morrison's direct line activated. "What do you want, Lieutenant? Full immunity for trafficking survivors? Immediate medical care for my mother, and every compromised military officer involved in your operation." "That's not going to happen." Maya watched tactical teams sweep the hospital on surveillance feed. "Check your secure servers, sir, particularly the ones in Singapore and Dubai." Silence as he accessed the data. "Then, you'll never be able to prove any of this." "Don't need to prove it. Just need to keep it public long enough for honest investigators to follow the money." "How many careers will that cost you?" The organization's response teams were good, but they'd never faced an enemy who understood their systems from the inside. Maya had spent her career learning to fight asymmetric warfare. Sometimes, the strongest position was the one your enemy thought was weakest. The organization tried to isolate her. Instead, they'd given her the perfect attack vector into their command and control infrastructure. Now the hunters had become the hunted, and a Navy SEAL never let her prey escape. The assault began at midnight. Military police breached Maya's warehouse command center with tactical precision. Flashbangs and breach charges shattered windows as operators rappelled from helicopters. Maya had anticipated the attack. Her team was already evacuating through pre-planned routes, while decoy systems broadcasted false signatures. The organization's response teams would find only empty rooms and cold trail. She monitored the assault from a secondary position. Their tactics confirmed her analysis. These weren't standard military police. They moved like the mercenary team from the facility. The organization's direct action unit, Martinez, coordinated the evacuation through police channel. Rachel's survivor network dispersed to safe houses across 3 states. Maya's mother was secure in a private medical facility, her treatment already paid for, with frozen assets from the organization's account. The mercenary commander's voice crackled over compromised communication. "Target is mobile, shifting to pursuit protocol." Maya recognized the tactical algorithms they were using. Standard Special Operations Pursuit Doctrine. She'd helped write some of those protocols during her SEAL career. Now she used that knowledge to stay ahead of them. Each evasion pattern triggered predictable response protocols she could exploit. The hunters became the hunted. Agent Chen's FBI team provided unofficial support, complicating the military pursuit. Jurisdictional conflicts bought precious time as Maya's evidence releases continued spreading through global networks. Admiral Morrison made one final attempt at containment. "Last chance, Lieutenant. Stand down now." Maya watched tactical teams sweeping her abandoned position. "Check your secure feeds, sir, particularly the ones showing real-time transfers from your offshore accounts." She'd found their financial infrastructure hidden in classified military systems. Now those same systems were exposing everything: money trails, transport records, names of compromised officials. The organization's damage control protocols activated automatically, but Maya had prepared for that too. Each attempted suppression triggered new revelations from different sources. The truth was their weakness. An enemy that lived in shadows couldn't survive exposure to light. Maya had spent 2 weeks learning their systems from the inside. Now she used that knowledge to tear down their walls. The mercenary teams switched to electronic warfare, trying to isolate her communication, but she'd already compromised their command and control infrastructure. Every attack provided new vectors she could exploit. Maya watched their tactical operations dissolve into chaos as conflicting protocols triggered each other. The organization's strength became its vulnerability. Their own systems turned against them. The final phase was beginning. Time to spring the trap. Maya intercepted the colonel at a private airfield outside the city. His escape plane waited on the runway, engines idling. She'd known he'd run once the organization's systems started failing. The mercenary team protected his evacuation, professional operators securing the perimeter. Maya counted 12 men, all former special forces, the organization's elite response unit. She engaged them from prepared positions around the airfield. Years of combat experience guided each shot, each movement. The mercenaries were good, but she'd spent 2 weeks studying their tactics. The colonel recognized the attack pattern. She's isolating the response teams. Switch to closed protection protocols. Maya used their own communications against them, feeding false intel through compromised channels. The mercenaries' disciplined response became predictable, vulnerable. Martinez coordinated with FBI tactical teams surrounding the airfield. Agent Chen had officially been removed from the investigation, but her operators moved into support positions unofficially. The colonel's security detail tightened formation around him, attempting to reach the plane. Maya picked them apart systematically, exploiting gaps in their coverage. Admiral Morrison's voice crackled over secure channels. "Stand down, Lieutenant. That's a direct order." "Not taking orders from traffickers, sir." The mercenary commander recognized her strategy too late. Each team he dispatched to counter her was isolated and eliminated. The hunters became trapped prey. Maya moved through the shadows she'd mapped earlier, her SEAL training making her invisible. The organization's operators were professional, but she was a ghost. The colonel reached the plane stairs, one final push to safety. But Maya had anticipated this move. She'd rigged the aircraft systems hours ago. Warning lights flashed in the cockpit. Critical system failures cascaded through vital components. The escape route became a trap. Maya engaged the remaining security teams with precise efficiency. No wasted movement, no wasted ammunition. Each shot calculated to wound rather than kill. These men would face justice in court. The colonel drew his sidearm as she approached. Professional courtesy between operators. One last chance to end this cleanly. "Stand down," Maya ordered. "It's over." He assessed his options with tactical clarity. The plane was grounded. His men were down. FBI teams were moving in. No viable escape routes remain. "You have no idea what you've done," he said. "The system exists for a reason. The system exists to protect people, not exploit them." The colonel lowered his weapon slowly. "Some wars need to be fought in shadow, not this one." Maya secured him as FBI tactical teams swept the airfield. Agent Chen personally took the colonel into custody, ignoring orders from Washington. The mercenary commander and his surviving operator surrendered professionally. They recognized a superior tactical operation when they saw one. Maya watched federal agents process the scene. The organization's leadership was exposed, their systems compromised, their shadows dispelled by light. The war wasn't over. Other elements would try to rebuild, but she'd struck a decisive blow at their center of gravity. Sometimes the most effective weapon wasn't a gun or a bomb. Sometimes it was simply the truth. Federal agents swarmed the trafficking network's command infrastructure. Maya watched from a secure location as years of corruption unraveled in hours. The organization's careful secrecy became its weakness once exposed to light. Admiral Morrison faced a military tribunal. His testimony implicated dozens of senior officers involved in the trafficking operation. Naval intelligence stripped security clearance and froze assets as evidence mounted. The colonel's captured files provided a roadmap of corruption. Police departments, judges, politicians all exposed. Maya's tactical infiltration had struck at the heart of their system. Davies and his corrupt officers were arrested by state police. Internal affairs investigations spread through multiple jurisdictions. The thin blue line cracked under federal pressure. Rachel coordinated support services for rescued trafficking victims, safe houses and counseling, legal aid and witness protection. The survivors became a network of their own, helping others escape. Martinez received a commendation for his role in exposing corruption. He used his position to reform police training, teaching officers to recognize and report trafficking indicators. Maya's mother received the experimental treatment at Johns Hopkins. Early results showed promise. The doctors were cautiously optimistic about her prognosis. Agent Chen built federal cases against key organization members. The evidence Maya gathered provided foundations for multiple prosecutions. Plea deals exposed more of the network. The mercenary teams faced military justice. Their commander cooperated, revealing operational details about similar trafficking networks globally. International investigations expanded. Local media coverage spread nationally. Congressional hearings were scheduled. Reform bills drafted. The shadows that enabled trafficking data from the operation. Each phase had exposed more of the organization's infrastructure, their own systems used against them. The colonel's words echoed in her mind. Some wars need to be fought in shadows, but shadows only held power when people feared the light. She'd struck a decisive blow. But the war wasn't over. Other networks would try to fill the void. Different shadows would need illumination. Maya studied intelligence reports about similar operations in other regions. The same patterns emerged. Military logistics, corrupt officials, vulnerable victims. She began planning her next mission. The skills that made her an effective SEAL could also make her an effective hunter of traffickers. The organization had thought they could cage a predator. Instead, they'd created their worst nightmare. A hunter who knew their tactics, their systems, their weaknesses. Sometimes, the most dangerous weapon was knowledge. Maya had learned to weaponize the truth. The fight would continue, but now the traffickers would learn to fear the light. And the hunter who brought it? Maya stood by her mother's hospital window, watching the Georgia sunrise. 6 months had passed since the organization's collapse. Evelyn's experimental treatment was working, her latest scans showing significant improvement. The trafficking network's infrastructure lay in ruins. Federal prosecutions had exposed corruption at every level. Police departments reformed, judges resigned, politicians faced justice. The shadows that enabled exploitation receded. Agent Chen built cases that spread internationally. The colonel's testimony implicated trafficking operations across multiple continents. Maya's tactical strike had triggered a global cascade. Rachel coordinated a growing survivor support network, safe houses and counseling services, legal aid and job training. The victims became advocates, helping others escape similar fates. Martinez led police reform initiatives in Clayton County, new training protocols, oversight committees, community engagement programs. The thin blue line transformed into a shield for the vulnerable. Maya reviewed intelligence reports on her secure laptop. Other trafficking networks were adapting, evolving. New shadows formed where old ones fell. The war continued on different fronts. Her mother watched her from the hospital bed. "You're not staying, are you?" "Can't. Too many others still need help." Evelyn nodded, understanding. "Just remember to come home sometimes. Someone needs to keep an eye on this place." Maya squeezed her hand. Clayton County had changed. Community oversight replaced corruption. Transparency defeated secrecy. Light dispelled shadows. She'd received offers from federal agencies, task forces, and special units targeting trafficking networks. But Maya preferred to work independently. Some hunters operated best alone. The skills that made her an effective SEAL now served a different mission: tactical infiltration, systems analysis, asymmetric warfare. Each operation exposed more network, saved more lives. Rachel's survivor network provided intelligence. Martinez's police contacts offered support. Agent Chen's federal resources enabled prosecution. Maya coordinated everything from the shadows. Sometimes the most effective weapon was knowledge. Understanding systems, exposing corruption, weaponizing truth. Maya had learned to fight monsters by mastering their own tactics. She checked her secure phone. New intelligence about trafficking operations in Eastern Europe, military logistics, corrupt officials, familiar patterns requiring familiar solutions. The organization had thought they could cage a predator. Instead, they'd created their worst nightmare: a hunter who understood their methods, their weaknesses, their fears. Maya kissed her mother goodbye and shouldered her tactical bag. Other victims needed help. Other networks needed exposure. Other shadows needed light. The war continued, but now the traffickers had learned to fear the hunter in their midst, the SEAL who turned their own weapons against them. Sometimes the strongest position was the one your enemy thought was weakest. Maya had learned to fight from inside the shadows, using truth as her most lethal weapon. She walked out of the hospital into Georgia's sunshine. Another mission waited, another network to expose, another chance to prove why Navy SEALs were the world's most dangerous hunters. The shadows beckoned, and the hunt began anew.